welcome back to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. This is the podcast that features me, Jana Stern, energy healer and psychic, as I delve into conversations with different folks in the holistic and conscious industries about the many beliefs and practices of spirituality, mental health, and what it means to be a human who's into that stuff in 2021 and beyond. Welcome back to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. This is a super exciting episode for me. I am joined by my first ever real teacher in this world, my friend, Sarah Hauch. You are a guide, a healer, a teacher with the Modern Mystery School. You are a gazillion beautiful things. I would love for you to give yourself a bit of an introduction and tell people how you got into that stuff.
Oh, what hour? I'll try and keep it condensed. What do? I have the blessing of traveling around the country, bringing tools of metaphysics, of healing, of spirituality all across the country. I get to work one-on-one for healings. They come for all different reasons, but I think ultimately everyone's underlying question they ask themselves is, who am I and what is my purpose? Why am I here? How do I find fulfillment? How do I take myself to the next level? And so it really comes down to knowing thyself. And it's funny, Janet, when I first started training in the mystery school 15 years ago, I looked at these amazing teachers. I looked at everyone that was around me and I thought, I'm going to become such a magical version of myself.
Hmm.
And the interesting thing is that everything that the mystery school teachings and healings did for me was peel away layers of programming that kept me from who I really was. And so, of course, there's activations and initiations which amplify the power you have, the amount of, so that's important, but not made me anything. It has helped me become more and more, because a lot of people want to just run out the door and be their authentic self through whatever practice we are engaging in. Our awareness becomes, ooh, that's not me, or ooh, that was a mask, or oh, I wonder why that triggered me in that way. So get into a place where I'm going to walk out that door like a queen, like my authentic self, like this is me.
And how did you get started on the path?
Honestly, God never gave me a chance to be normal. So mother and father, doctor, government worker, sort of politician, but not politician, that they were both extremely. My father could astral travel since he was 20. So that was always part of my reality. Hearing these incredible stories about happening. And when I was 6, we moved into a haunted house, and not a fun one that constantly kept us in a state of trauma. And of course, these magical, weird, strange, out of the ordinary things are happening on a daily basis. Hard for me to relate to other people because the only person in the world who knew what I was going through was my sister. And even to this day, I totally understand and accept that people don't believe ghosts are real. And I love that for them because I wish that was my reality, but it's not. And I think all I ever wanted was have friends, be popular, and have this story, have what magazines showed and have what movies showed. And I thought that that's what would lead to happiness. That's where I want to be. That's where you should be.
Mm.
And so now God did grant that wish to me. But interestingly enough, I think it was at the expense of shutting down so many of my gifts.
For sure. It's the only way to do it, right? You can't be activated and also shut. You have to choose a little bit, right?
In my case, I really did, because to show up as authentic Sarah, I was so weird. Now I'm like, thank you. But when that happened, Jana, my physical body started to die. I have to think now, was my chakras really starting to shut down? What happened? Luckily, my mom was a doctor and she flew me and drove me to hospitals all across in the United States. We found out I had what's called a mitochondrial myopathy. I was supposed to die. I did die twice. Doctors gave me not so long. And I just started meditating a lot because it was the only thing that would stop my pain. Because I would visualize the pain I had. I'd visualize it slowly getting smaller and smaller. And so that would help. And the meditation really unlocked a lot of things for me because I had everything. I got the popularity, I got all the friends, I got the boyfriend, I was partying, doing everything I thought I was supposed to. Then I have to eventually let go of all of that because I barely leave the house. And so here I kind of am back where I was, except the illusion of the matrix had fallen apart for me.
And how old were you?
This was 19. And so the quest for answers then became what the heck is meditation? I traveled all around the world volunteering and trying to find meditation teachers and trying to explore what reality was. Because I cured myself, arguing that something's supposed to kill me. I started living life to the fullest extent, working all the time, going to school full time, doing everything and anything I could, and then arguably achieving really good success. I built a corporate wellness company. It was winning awards. The company that I was a consultant for said, we want to hire, travel the world. You're going to do this. And all I heard was, we own you. Once again, in my life, I had achieved what I was programmed to believe. This is success. This is where you're going to find your happiness and fulfillment. And there I was again. And I had the boyfriend. He wanted to marry me because in Winnipeg, you're 23, you get married, and I had everything. And I just wanted to peel my skin off and run away. Not that that's not a beautiful life, but it was not how it was supposed to show up. I realized everything that I had created up until that moment was because it was what I had been told I was supposed to create, and
Right.
not an authenticity of who am I and what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to help the world?
No.
And so I literally just gave everything up. Somehow the universe led me to getting a scholarship to Western Ontario, the university, and I did a master's degree. And it was there that I got a life application. And from the mystery school, and I never looked back after that.
That's incredible. There are so many different ways that we connect with our purpose. But as I experienced when you life activated me, there is something in that that takes you from wherever the mystery, I want to say, wherever the confusion is, not even mystery, but wherever the confusion is in a reality that says you act like this, you do like this is how you go, this is who you are. And in yourself, you're like, that's not true. And there is something about the life activation. You know, I have lots of feelings around the mystery school, but I have lots of feelings around the life activation and the healings that really do something. The life activation literally pulls you from that confusion and just like into alignment with yourself. And you're like, okay. And then you go, you just follow the path. And, you know, if you're lucky, you get to go along all of the other ascension steps along that feel resonant for you, that maybe align with mystery school and maybe don't, and maybe a multitude of other things. But there's no question that it activates something.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like, I come from a very science background, and in my household, well, my dad's very, very, very artistic, but my mother, who was more my primary influence, was very logical.
Mm.
So if you were to quantify, what do I do? How do you know life activation works? The only way I know it works is because I've done 1,000 of them. And it's interesting because if you look at the scientific process, there's a question: does the life activation work? There's the hypothesis of what you think is going to happen. Then you create a study. And then from the study, you extrapolate data and then come up with a conclusion. And so for the 14 years I've been doing life activations, well, the scientific proof is yes, it
Right.
works.
Right. And it's not, you cannot debate it. I've never met a single person who's been life activated that doesn't, on some level, live more in alignment with their truth than those who have not. Full stop.
And
So, a big part of what you do in this world is you really do. And I've been very, very blessed to receive from you many times in my life. And each time, always something new, always something affirming and powerful coming through. I'm curious for you what the best part about it is all these years later for you now, because you're steadfast on this trajectory, which I love for you. So I'm curious what it is that still lights you up about it. Obviously, helping others, but for you specifically.
That's such a good question because I know all I ever wanted was to find my purpose.
Yeah.
And that purpose was I help people. Look at all the jobs I ever had. They were helping people, whether my first job as a server in a coffee shop, serving people, or it was personal training, or whatever I did for a living, it was helping people.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make their lives better. And to this day, for me, there's still nothing that I do that I feel I can do
Yeah.
that people more than I know how. That's not to say that if I ever found something where I was like, "Oh my god, this is it," I would not do it. Where I'm at right now, this is arguably the most way, and Jana, because I am in utter joy.
Mhm.
I might do it. Every session, every healing, every class, I am in joy. And so being in joy and feeling like I'm living my purpose, that is a really good path.
Everyone listening is like, the fuck is she taking? I'll have some of that. I really want to ask a kind of tricky question because this is something that comes up a lot for people who are very dismissive of the metaphysical, especially, and this is a conversation that I have a lot around Reiki and around energy healing, right? It's so non tangible. And even though I know you've done so many different healings and so many different things in your lifetime and you've seen so much change, I'm curious if you can articulate and speak to I'd love to chat about Ensophic versus non Ensophic, but also can you chat a little bit about the reality of metaphysical healing and how real it is, particularly in a world where we're all very much creating our reality and everything is very much metaphysical and fully in our heads? So if you can speak to that a little bit, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, that's a super good question. I'm going to put an answer based on where I'm at in my progression now. Apps, if I were to, someone's watching this 3 years from now, just allow,
So
I
we'll
would,
have another check in. Don't you fret.
when people say I'm spiritual, I find it sweet. I understand what they're saying is I'm consciously engaging in the fact that I'm spiritual.
Yeah.
But the thing I saw with new age culture,
Yeah. And you, by the way, for those listening, had a space in Toronto for many years where a lot of new agers came through and had events and healings and group sessions and dances and all kinds of things. So you've seen, and you have one in Winnipeg now. So you've seen a lot of new agers. Please go ahead.
yes, and well, Toronto, there is a way larger community and the new age events because we had a rental event as venue and because they weren't doing harm, it was good and it was positive and it was great. But you see it as religious. And even though there's like this almost fanaticism about New Ageism that they're not religious, fanaticism always leads to hypocrisy. And it's interesting because they became very religious. And there's this sense and feeling of fitting a mold, or the people that would come to the events would eventually all start looking the same or talking. And every single person is spiritual. And a true metaphysical expression is the ultimate unique expression of self. And the reality of metaphysics is that it is everywhere all the time. And this moment from being sacred is the acknowledgement that it already is. New age world, and I can only speak to like the few people I know because this might not be true worldwide or for those people anymore. But it was a escape of the physical world.
Mm.
Whereas the true spiritual experience of being a human being is to be here. And it is almost an insult to the human race to want to escape the physical world.
Mm.
We have trained for hundreds of thousands of years and lifetimes and dimensions to train for a physical reality.
Mm.
And based on the Kabbalistic teachings, there's these negative veils of existence that exist over the life that shows us that we chose it consciously. We wanted a purely human experience. Forgetting who we are was the plan. And that allows us to fully be in it, to fully be in relationships and try to manifest and fail and make mistakes and learn and figuring out how to be good with money and how to be good with time, how to take care of a physical body. And this is important. And if you don't take care of it for 50 years, you're going to start feeling it. And it's when you have got a really good foundation here, that's what gives us the footing to start the ascension process. And a real metaphysical ascension is entirely selfless in nature because we live in a unity consciousness. That's where we come from, this unity, this oneness. And then we ask for an individual experience. So moving from the oneness, we almost think it was a loan, an energetic loan, to be entirely selfish.
Mm.
We got a selfish experience and we shouldn't lose that. We have to always take care of us first. So from the unity, we came down, we descended into the physical realm, into this density to manifest. And it was a selfish experience. You see how that from oneness to just being us.
Yeah.
Ascension, we pay back that loan,
Mm.
this act of service, service to self and service to others.
When you're talking about healings, can you link those things for me?
Metaphysics and
The difference between this new age woo woo stuff.
oh, okay. There's not one person I didn't meet who was in a new age culture that wasn't a good person at heart. Friends, I have found for myself is that are you in a lineage behind what you're teaching? Because without that, there's no direction and there's no responsibility.
Talk a little bit more about lineage because I know it's different from person to person.
You could even look at a royal lineage. If you were back in the day, you were born into a royal lineage that instantly puts upon you incredible responsibility, right? When you find a real authentic lineage to train with, it's almost like you have teachers that can show you what you can't see. Our lineage comes from the lineage of King Solomon. And then it actually 5,000 years before that to Hermes, who
Mm.
was channel 4. So it goes back even beyond Hermes. And in our lineage, it feels like I have bumper bulls on either side of me. And if I start getting a little too arrogant, I don't know, trip and fall. Lineage keeps moving towards balance and moving towards perfection, moving towards the high version of myself. That's truly between me and God.
That's interesting. I feel the same way about mystery school lineage, but also my genetic lineage, which is the same, I guess, all the way back there, right? Just this ancientness of, and even for those who like don't know where they come from, quote unquote, spiritually on an energetic metaphysical level, they do. And there is ways to access that knowledge within and go all the way back and be like, okay, what are the rituals that I need to be practicing and how do I need to practice and what can I do to stay in alignment? And yeah, find where those bumpers are because it's very easy to get lost in the ego. And I see that happen a lot. And I see it happen a lot in these people that call themselves practitioners. And what they're doing is instead of leaning into, oh, where is my bumper? They're actually going into the gutters and pulling from the gutter and trying to heal through another.
And I just want to make it really clear. I don't think people do it intentionally because they have bad intentions.
No, definitely not.
But for example, all the Ensophic Reiki practitioners in the world, we all know who they are. There's a central database. We are all met to a very strict standard. And if we don't meet those standards, you will lose your certification. There's a central body that knows what every student is, make sure that everyone has an opportunity to progress. With the healers that are now, what's the next step? How are you progressing? How are becoming the next version of yourself, right? If you take a Reiki course, that's wonderful, but then what? Reiki was handed down to humanity not as a healing modality. It was handed down to humanity as a path of personal enlightenment from the Reiki that we now know in the Western world. There is no lineage for people to go to. There's no path. There's no progression. Yes, you can take another Reiki training, but that hasn't changed at all your own personal progression.
Yeah. And that's why there's sort of like this cyclical thing that happened because there's no further to go. So as soon as you bring somebody in, you're in a container that just goes like this, right?
And unfortunately, that can sometimes lead to spiritual arrogance.
Mm.
So that now you're like a guru syndrome. Right. Because your soul is finding what it's longing for, you're going to put that modality down and try something different. So now you're kind of just bopping horizontally and you don't have the chance to actually
Mhm. Right. Then you're becoming a multitude of things, but jack of all trades, expert of none, right?
well, yeah, maybe you haven't devoted decades of your life into something because the goal is not feeling the thing.
And I mean, I know it's hard, but of all of the things that you offer, what would you say is the one that fulfills you most?
Oh, the most?
Yeah.
Well, that's hard.
Pick your favorite child. Go.
Luckily, I only have one right now, so that could do that. But there's three things I love the most. There's Ensophic Reiki, but the three things I love are life activation, the instant impact, the empower thyself initiation, right? You initiate someone, you anchor themselves into the physical world, you set them on that spiritual path of progression. People that come to empower themselves feel like they have cultivated all the land, but they know there's more. They don't know how to access it. That is a 10 times quantum leap in someone's progression.
Mm.
And then it's the Kabbalah, because every human being, for me, deserves the chance to have what that offers. And it actually devastates me that humans live a life without the opportunity to experience what the results are of it.
Yeah, I have thoughts on it for sure. I think that, we've talked about this. There are many reasons that information is gate kept. And I think a lot of it is because human consciousness wasn't at a particular level to receive. I think when we think about how the world was once upon a time, to give this knowledge to people in the 1920s, for example, what they could or would have done with it, we can't know, but how they would have received it would have been very much like bombshells in a consciousness that was very linear. And there's a lot in it to receive and to transmute. And I think at this stage of human evolution, clearly we can see the consciousness. And I know that you and I have both watched this, right? There was like a clear sleepiness, and people are really rubbing their eyes everywhere, being like, very bright out, which I love. And I think that those who seek it should be able to find it in safe places and containers that are in integrity and have received this from the right sources with the right intention. And I also recognize that where we're going consciously, where we're going evolutionarily, that information would be sort of innately taught, right? Just like how we need to be teaching kids meditation at this stage. You go to the schools, the kids are learning it. They're learning how to breathe and how to exist as a human being, which is awesome. And so it's clear to me that in the next 30 to 50 years, maybe that is kind of where we go. But I still feel in a world where everything is very, very clearly given to you through a little black box, which we call our phones or our TVs, this information would really rock a lot of people's realities, right? And so I do think that we need to spread it, but I also think it still needs to be kept behind gates. And that's just my own having grown up learning that, like, you're not supposed to learn it until you're 40 and you're not supposed to learn it until you have X information. And, in that time, it was like you had to be a male and you had to be this and you had to be learning in yeshiva and understanding the Torah and like all these other things, because there's a lot of esoteric knowledge that you need to receive before you receive this level of esoteric knowledge. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and I think you and I learn a lot from each other because we study a lot of Judaism, and that is a very specific way of studying the Kabbalah. I mean, the Kabbalah is the DNA of God. Everything springs from it. So there's nothing
Right.
that's Kabbalistic, like because everything on planet Earth comes from that. So to me, I love Kabbalah is also the unifying point. It's where we can find world peace because everything came from a place where we can all find mutual ground.
And it's also like every other teaching across the world. Kabbalah is Kabbalah, but it's also so many other teachings. So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, the mystery school experience of the Universal Kabbalah. There's a reading list. Someone could message me and say, like, give me books on Kabbalah. I will give you books on Kabbalah, but it's the actual ascension process into it. And so that's where the gates, yes, we're now being ascended into the actual sephir of the tree of life.
Mm.
And the difference between studying something and experiencing it is, or in the tree, like the bottom sphere on the tree, you're in Malkuth. There's nowhere to escape on the other parts of the tree. We all live in the tree of life every moment of every day, but we move into the places in the tree where we feel comfortable. And
Mhm.
not only do we get unbalanced energetically, we're not using all of our power. And so the places we so desperately want to be more empowered, perhaps it's boundary setting and power and assertion and using your voice. But if you are scared of those things, scared of that in you, you will never enter into that sphere in the tree. And so you're going to have a whole bunch of conscious blocks there. You're also going to have all this untapped potential. But then in the Kabbalah experience with the mystery school, like you are freaking in it and you could do a 360-degree turn. There's nowhere for you to go. Have to deal with it. And just the most beautiful process of the universal Kabbalah is that in the tree, there's a gap that keeps the physical and the metaphysical world. And so there's this gap there. And this is where your deepest, darkest fears live. This is where everything that keeps you from God is, everything that keeps you from knowing you are God, everything that keeps you from unlimited potential and the quantum field and your galactic self is here. And when you cross that abyss, it closes, have forevermore access to that part of yourself. And I was teaching a Proud to Self class this weekend. I started crying because I was like, every human being deserves, I'm going to cry again. Damn it. Every human being deserves to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
We feel so hard and we're working so hard to be our highest version, but there's this huge space between you and your highest self. And you should have access to that all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's one of those things that when we talk about breaking the system, which I talk about a lot, the financial system and the government system and all of those systems, if we were as individuals living in alignment with that higher self, those systems don't exist. There's no space for hierarchy in a system at all when you understand that you are God and you have this creative capacity. If we all lived that way, there's no top tier. There's just, I'm living in integrity with me, and you're living in integrity with you. And we all bring that self into existence, and existence will automatically look and feel differently. I understand that actually a big part of your tears are about like, this is your purpose, right? To really deliver this to so many more people than it would have been available to if you didn't bring your voice and your intention into it.
Sorry, can you say that again?
You, Sarah, this is your purpose, is to bring this information wider because you have life activated over 1,000 people. You do talk to a lot of people. Every time you speak, there are always more people listening than you're aware of. And as you do that, you're bringing information to people that they did not know before you came into their sphere. Right. And so, this like thing that has become such a big part of your toolkit. There's a lot of tools in your toolkit. You give all kinds of healings and you do all kinds of beautiful things. But I know that this piece, this Kabbalah piece, is like two things for you. A, it's literally your lineage, right? You are Jewish when you go back. And also, it's your why, or a big part of it at least.
It's a big part of my why, a huge part, because this is my purpose. The man that delivered my son, he has his purpose. He's 72 years old and he talks to you like the baby you have inside of you is the first baby he's ever seen in his whole life. And so that's his purpose. It's so important for me to express that this is my purpose. I'm not here to say this is your purpose. Like just to figure out who you are. An important part of my evolution is like, yes, I study and train them with the mystery school. I'm not going anywhere. This is who I am. And my friends either have to figure that out or don't coexist. But I am me first. My power does not come from the mystery school either.
Right.
It comes from me.
Right.
And the mystery school, yes, provides a structure and activations and teachers and opportunities for growth.
Mm.
And so I'm excited for a world. You and I, we could banter. I think we have the exact same opinion, but we find it in a different way. I think the world absolutely needs hierarchy because nothing would get fucking done.
Fucking Virgo.
In Shambhala, like when we have found peace, I think that's a different structure. Then I think we're
Right.
at circle versus a pyramid. Oh, if you were to look at the difference between a third world country, first world country, do you know what the difference is? The difference is the hierarchy, a ladder for someone to go from the third class to the first class.
Yeah.
Like go from low economic status, the middle, and then the upper. Like a first world country has that ladder for people.
Sure, people are clambering on top of each other, but there's still opportunity if you're willing to like really get it and
Yeah,
really like climb.
absolutely. You go to South Africa, that's not happening. On TV, it just looks like a wasteland, right? But then you get there and you're like, $100,000 cars everywhere, right? So third world country doesn't mean no rich people. It means no middle class.
Exactly. And I mean, I was living in third world countries for over a year. There's not no money. There's just no money to go around. Or I should say, the money is not going around. It's in one place at the top, and everything below has nothing.
It's
There is no ladder. You're right.
so the hierarchy for me, again, I think hierarchy is a good thing if depending on who's at the top and what it is, because the hierarchy that I see, I'm like, oh, this is opportunity for me to grow.
Mm.
Whereas if you look at certain hierarchies, if the intentions are nefarious or it's clearly not in alignment with the light, a hierarchy can seem like this is, again, everything comes back to Ensophic Reiki for me too. If we are living in a strictly logical left brain, right? So if you're living in the reptilian brain, it is prey and predator, then
Mm.
it becomes someone dictating at the top and everyone underneath. It's just like prey.
Yeah. And then you're the victim and you're constantly on the defense and everything is a problem and everything is like this just to try to exist.
And everything is for the betterment of the people at the top, where
Mhm.
have a fully functioning brain and everything's balanced. Then the hierarchy exists because everyone can move up together. This is the ideal hierarchy, right? Like that's the ideal hierarchy. It's ideal for the people at the top, right? Because as the people below you get richer, more balanced, everyone's happier. That seems like a great, right? Everyone gets to progress.
Eh,
And we shouldn't devalue the people that work fucking hard to get there either.
no.
A CEO that doesn't work 8 hours a day, you know? But I really think about a lot. How do we save the world? Because
Mm.
why am I doing what I'm doing if I can't believe that that is possible? I might as well just throw in the towel and just fucking like, you know what I mean?
Listen, yeah, because when I was in dark spaces in relation to humanity, I was like, I don't want to heal people, fuck people, right? And that sucked. So I'm with you.
Yeah. So how do we do it? And the only answer for me that I can see is that human consciousness has to grow.
Uh-huh.
That's it. For the truly get to a different place, more people need to care more. We need to have higher consciousness levels everywhere. For number one, personal happiness. You are personally happy. When you're personally fulfilled, then your family is happy and fulfilled. And when your family is happy and fulfilled, you bring that into the workplace, and then that is happy and fulfilled. And this is how you create change and world peace. That's why I slog every day, but I will talk to every person and I will keep doing interviews and I will keep going out there because I see the changes in every person. So I'm just going to keep changing the world with one person at a time, little by little, the whole team of us all around the world and yourself included. Like, anyone who's just like, I'm trying to make a difference.
Yeah. It's a big thing. And I know that for you, another big way that you are making that impact is as a mother. Speak
Yeah.
to it a little.
I know. Again, I'm like talking a lot about Mr. And that's kind of how we started the conversation. But in our list, they say that motherhood is the highest initiation on the planet.
Mm.
And Lord, I had opinions about that before I became a mother. I remember I was watching a presentation and then there was all these like female archetypes, right? The priestess, the queen, and the warrioress. And then it was like the mother. And I was like, mother. I was like,
Mm.
so lame. And I think they had this weird belief that being a mother was just being a mother. And yet becoming a mother has made me better at absolutely everything. It has accessed my, if you want to talk about like a feminine power that exists in me, like this
I have chills already.
understanding what feminine energy actually means grows as being a mother. And then you are the full-time guide for one human being. Everything else in my life, I'm replaceable.
Uh,
The only place I am not replaceable is this little human being's life. And I really take that seriously. It has made me a better person, but I struggled with it because no one talks about this. They talk about like all the shit you should buy and all the doctor's appointments and all the full markers, but no one talks about this transition from maiden to mother. And so I was this grinding, hustling maiden who did what she wanted when she wanted, kind of that selfish mentality of I'm going to do me. And then you have to transition to mother. And again, my guide told me, Sarah, I can't explain this until it happened. But when you become a mother, you get an entirely new energy body.
uh,
And so for a long time, I did not know who I was.
yeah, I remember.
You move differently. My wake up and work, go to bed and work is not a reality anymore. My work days have become super condensed because I really like being with my son and it matters to me. And yes, I could wake up at 6 and I could hustle him out the door and get him to daycare. And my mom had to do that because of her job, but that's not
Mm.
how I want to do it. Love that time in the bed with him in the morning and playing and being silly and having that time and picking him up. I love that. It really got me clear on the pressure I put on myself. And so this transition from maiden to mother has really changed. Well, obviously everything in your life, but I mean, it really changed everything.
And how did it change your practice, like your business? How did it change how you heal others?
Especially the clients that have known me the longest. They're like, "Sarah, you are so much softer. You are so much more gentle. You're so much more understanding. You're so much more compassionate." All those qualities that it made me such a better healer because I'm settling into myself. You're so tired sometimes that you just don't give a fuck anymore. And you're just like, I don't even have the strength to put my mask on right now. And
Yeah.
can I quantify this? No, but I had a C-section, and so it cut through, like, my kara, or some people would say sacral chakra, and, like, it cut off my masks. So I instantly became this extraordinarily more authentic version of myself, whether I wanted to or not. It was there. Progression has accelerated a lot. I really care about things more because I want the world to be a better place for him.
I got that. Yeah. I think that's like a common narrative that I hear from my friends who are mothers is you look at the world through a very different lens because it's so not about you at all anymore. I mean, there's so much sacrifice in motherhood. We know that. And there's this eternity that opens up.
Because there's now a link between you and the next generation, and then maybe the next generation and the next generation.
Yeah. So, how you're affecting the change in eternity, which you already were by just doing what you do and living in that purpose. I imagine that each client can probably feel it in the receiving that you have a deeper understanding of literally existence, which in the first place, from many places, you already had like a really expansive perspective because you are really scientific and you are really metaphysical and you are full of knowledge and information from lots of different places. So I imagine being a source more than just talking about it. It's like we were talking about earlier, the experience of being a portal shifts how you look at all portals, which you often bring people through when you're in a healing space, right?
Yeah. And I really learned a lot of the masculine and feminine role. I see how God bless single parents, but if I was a single mother, I would absolutely need a male figure in Joel's life because my husband brings so much to the table in a different way that I couldn't. And I that I couldn't. And so we have settled into more than masculinity and femininity. And because we're like, okay, if we're going to raise a good human, we need that. And it makes Joel a better person. I'm like, let's just have fun. And, but then Drew's like, no, no, we're not watching TV today. And Drew's so good at so many things. He's such a good protector and it lets me be the good nurturer. And that's taught me so much about myself and how my magic works and maybe how I haven't been letting my magic exist the way that it could because I was the traumatized child. I did experience so much abuse. I had to take care of myself and I got to make Sarah okay. I got to make Sarah okay. I got to make Sarah okay. And then hustle, hustle, entrepreneur, got to make it work. And then you live in Toronto and like your apartment costs $8,000. You're like, okay, I have to hustle to now being like settling into this place where obviously I still work, but it's different. The way I do it is different and it's weird, but good.
It's funny. I've been talking a lot about this balance of yin and yang, and we all have both. And I believe, by the way, that there are those of us in female bodies that have more yang and those in male bodies that have more yin, and that the balance of those things is not linear. It is a spectrum. And I fully believe that there are people who lean one more way or the other. What all of the politics around it is doesn't sort of really matter to me. But I do know that as a woman who lives in a woman's body and has in a society that very much reminded me that I'm a woman, but also grew up with 4 brothers and has a lot of Aries and fire in my chart. I know that my coping mechanism for all of my trauma and my experiences is I have a list of ways that I want to accomplish reality so that I can hold on to it, so that I have a grip. And where I can let go more is where I feel supported, where I feel like there is something that is catching me. And so when my partner is that, I'm like, okay, this is easier. Now I can soften. Now I can receive more. And so, yeah, I imagine that stepping into that motherhood role, you're like, okay, there's a child that's attached to my breast and my energy level is only here. And so, even though I want to be doing and doing and doing and doing, that is no longer available to me. So I actually need to ask for things to receive them. And then in receiving what I've asked for, there's like receive this.
Because then you have more to give. A woman will give without thinking. For me, it's just my set point. He comes home, sits on the couch, and he fucking turns off. Like, what a way to live, right? But their moon cycles for them exist every 24 hours, both to a full cycle. So when the day is done, like, they're hitting the end of that cycle. Whereas women, we exist in the moon cycle every 28 days. And so we are high, full of low. But no matter what we are, we're always about how do I take care of others in my life? And so I've learned as a mother, if I don't make it about me, it will never, ever, ever be about me. Importance of I don't care what it is, like massage, say to yourself, like you have to receive. You have to receive.
Yeah.
Now my life is always about someone else.
Yeah. And it's never ending. And it's beautiful to bring in that self care practice as more than just lip service. So I love that you're embodying that. Oh, I have a little green friend who's joined me from nowhere, a little tiny bug that's hanging out on my computer, just reminding us that we're safe. Speaking the truth here. This has been incredible. I am so grateful. Know that we did want to get into another piece. And what I really want to do is actually record a second episode with you about that because I think it was
Oh,
really interesting to get into some of the differences of our experiences around living in a physical body, particularly as women. So I think we'll definitely have to book that one in. But this has been super enlightening and beautiful. I'm so grateful to get to spend time and space with you as always. I would love for you to share with people, A, where they can find you, and B, ways that they can support you in your business as you're expanding right now.
That's really sweet. That's not something I usually think about. You will find me on Instagram, of course, Sarah Hauch. Mm, support yourself, I guess. Get a life activation anywhere in the world where you are, wherever you are. Because I'm really falling back in love, my love of corporate wellness, I'm bringing metaphysics and stress management tools and meditation back into the corporate world. And I have a website with all kinds of really inexpensive meditations to help people that are trying to start a meditative practice. So you can check that out below. I appreciate that. Every person who lives more authentically themselves supports my ultimate mission of world peace.
I am incredibly grateful for you and grateful for all of our listeners. Thank you for listening and for tuning in. We'll be back next time for another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. And thank you all for being here, and much love to you, Sarah. Thanks for listening to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. Follow along with us on Instagram at I'm Really Into That Stuff, and be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. If this episode resonated with something that you're really into, share it with someone you love. Sending you strength, peace, love, and light until next week.